April of Fawcett Group here tonight at Mobile Monday, and I'm speaking with Dr. Mayaud, who was one of the panelists on tonight's panel of consumerization of healthcare. Now, you're a doctor, a medically trained internist, and you're also an angel investor, which I think is a very interesting combination.
Entrepreneur.
And
We built a lot of these things early on. One of the things we discovered is a lot of things that people call innovative here we've seen before. The issue that makes them successful is the right timing. So a lot of the apps are not, I haven't seen any new apps, quite frankly. But what's going to matter and what's going to be successful is the timing. Right feature set and the right stakeholder.
So where do you see the biggest challenge in mobile healthcare going forward?
Data. Data, and this is a problem with internet in general. You have an inflation of secondary, tertiary, and hearsay data, and very few people. If you look at news sites, it's the same thing. Who's the original journalist that started this rumor?
Right, because we're not looking at the primary data.
Exactly. So the primary data hasn't changed. In fact, it was digital before the internet. Right? The pharmacy knew what they were giving you. The lab companies had it. Everything was already in computers. What you needed was a controlled highway. Right now, unfortunately, the patients haven't learned that they control their digital doppelganger. And if you talk to any lawyer, companies are allowed to own databases, but you own your data elements.
So what would that look like as a consumer for any of us?
Well, what you're going to have someday, and we tried to push this earlier, what would happen is all your data you control, but you don't control it because you've downloaded it. You control it because it's about you.
Right.
So what you have is a server out there that keeps track of my preferences. And this was explored in the mid-90s. The Electronic Frontier Foundation and we commissioned a study, and there was only 25 questions, and it moves 90% of the data.
You mentioned those 25 questions. What's one of those questions?
They're obvious things. If I'm unconscious and I go to an ER, do I want that doctor to have access to all my records?
Okay.
If you don't, that's fine. But the point is we need to know that answer. Okay, if I'm a doctor and I give you a referral to a subspecialist, do I want to give him access to that forever? Do I want to give it all of it? Yes. Forever? Maybe not. Is it fair that I know I can still go and check Mick Jagger's HIV status because I saw him as a consultant for a foot product 20 years ago? Nah, probably not. But a lot of systems, that's what's going on. So a lot of these problems haven't been solved because what's happened is we've made bigger and bigger healthcare systems. So as long as you're in that healthcare system, you're fine. And everything looks fine and dandy. Go right across the street, nobody knows what's going on anymore. And you can't move the data. Ultimately, the institution shouldn't be managing your data. It's hearsay. So I think that the actual data that apps of the future are going to be building are relatively small. So there's those apps, but those are futuristic apps. That's where we're going. For now, it's going to be stakeholders need their own dashboards. So physicians need their own dashboards, the nurses need their own dashboards, and those will be independent apps that probably are going to be developed within the enterprise environment because the enterprise providers are about to go bankrupt because there's no incentive. The government has been paying them. It's like a mortgage crisis, right? It's basically the people who now own EMRs can't really afford them. So, and they're not going to be able to pay for them once the government subsidies stop. And so these providers are going to, a $50 million contract is going to turn into a $10 million contract. So revenues are going down. So these companies have no value, and that's not going to be an exit. Nobody can do that. And they're not going to be focused on the doctors or any of the stakeholders. They're going to be maintaining the data for that enterprise.